As a child, I cherished all my books. I loved Little Women and Pinocchio and Alice in Wonderland. But Peter Pan was really my favorite because that was the atmosphere in the world that I most lived in. And really, I thought it was possible because it was in a book that we didn't have to grow up. And when I was very small, I decided I didn't want to grow up, that I would stay about 10 or 11, and that was good enough for me. And it was a big surprise for me. Actually, I was heartbroken to find out that we didn't have a choice. I thought we were just put on earth, and then we could decide what happens in our life. And but I've never let go of that feeling. You know, I've never really felt that I've grown up.
Praying seemed like an important part of your childhood life. Do you see?
Well, you know, to me, prayer is the essential, you know, that is, you know, the essential way that we communicate with our loved ones and, of course, with our God. In my life, my last time I was in an organized religion was when I was 12. I left my religion, but I never left prayer. You can pray anywhere. You can pray. There's beautiful cathedrals and churches everywhere, but at the sea or in a field or when you're falling asleep at night, you know, it's a way to stay in contact, sometimes just with yourself, sometimes with a higher energy, and sometimes with our loved ones. And prayer to me is just a natural part of being.
You had an early interest in poetry. Do you see there's a connection between your being brought up with praying and the interest for poetry?
Yes, I never thought about that really, but that's really a good thought because many poems are like little prayers. My first book of poetry was called Silver Pennies, and it was all poems that had to do with elves and fairies and mysticism. And in that book, I read Blake, I read Yeats, and Vachel Lindsay, many poets that have stayed with me in my life. And a lot of them were like little prayers. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? It's quite like a prayer. And yes, that's a nice thought. I think there is an absolute connection there.
You were also reading Arthur Rimbaud, the French poet, when you were 16. That's quite an early age to discover French poetry.
Well, I discovered Rimbaud two ways. When I was 14, 15 years old, I wanted to be an artist, and I was very skinny, and I loved Modigliani, and I loved his paintings because, well, they reminded me of the Sienese paintings, but, you know, his models I could relate to. And I read a book about him, and he loved this poet named Arthur Rimbaud. And I didn't know who Arthur Rimbaud was, but I thought, I have to read him if this painter liked him so much. And then I was in Philadelphia, and there was a secondhand bookstore outside a bus station, books very cheap. And there was a book, and I saw it, and what attracted me was the boy, the face on the cover. I mean, I was 15, 16 years old, and Arthur Rimbaud is really cute. So truthfully, I was attracted by his face. And then I picked up the book and realized this was the poet that Modigliani liked. So that was very lucky that it just happened to be a very cute poet. So I fell in love with him, but not just his face. When I opened the book, his language, I couldn't really understand it all because poetry is sometimes like a secret language and sometimes takes a while to unlock. But I've never let that bother me. If I don't understand a poem right away, but I'm seduced by its beauty, I just revel in the beauty of the language. So it took me a while to decipher Rimbaud, but I loved him right away, his words. and his face. Well, until I discovered Bob Dylan.